Hi there, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of The Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast. I'm Philip Ideson. I'm joined by Darragh MacAnthony, chairman and co-owner of Peterborough United. And first of all, congratulate you on a great week. You had a couple of good wins, I think, the last few days, third in the table.
Yeah, we're humming. We're playing the tunes well at the moment. I think we're 8 unbeaten and 6 wins out of 8 and, good home form. Look, to win promotion, you need to start winning away from home. And that was the one area, for a couple of months, we've won since November. And I think we had a period where we won 4 away from home in a row. But since then, it's been really, really dry. And again, to go up, you want to knock off promotion rivals. And I know some Ipswich fans get down on themselves, but they're a massive football club in League One. So we beat them 4-1 there last year. So to go 2 years in a row to Ipswich and win away. So credit to the manager and the players. But I was there. And as much as it was great to win, I felt sad as well. Because it was like going to our place. It was miserable. You're in the car till 10-3. There's no food. There's no socialising with away directors. You go into a little quiet room. Look, it's better than most fans who have to watch by iFollow. But, you sat in the stand. It's a beautiful big stadium like Sunderland, and it's fucking empty. And I'm just it depresses me, Phil.
I got to imagine it's pretty surreal.
It's really surreal. I did it at Sunderland, but there was 8 of us in a 50,000 seater stadium. It's just really bizarre. And again, that was my first away game, I think, since Sunderland. So again, it was just a little bit, I fell flat. And then it was just one of them games where Ipswich were a lot better than I thought they'd be. They dug in. We weren't at our best. But again, you take that another 20 odd times, and what people don't realise is our attack always gets a lot of, the plaudits. But I think we're top 3 in defence in League One.
Mm-hmm.
And our back line and our goalie, who's the Golden Gloves winner last year, we're really good again and kind of dug us out. So you're not always going to be at it all the time, are you? But where we were good was concentration was strong. It was focused. You could tell they wanted that fucking clean sheet more than anything else. And look, came away and happy days. Table-wise, I have no idea where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Give a fuck until April. I just want to keep seeing us progressing. That's the key.
Is being stronger at the back kind of what differentiates this team versus past Peterborough teams?
I think 2 things. One, yes, there's a bigger identity on how good we are at the back. We haven't had a team like that for a long time that's strong defensively. And I think our front 3 are now looking like the front 3 a lot of other managers will talk about in League One has been one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So you got Schmodux is in form. Dembele has realised that he's going to have to play out of his skin. And then if he wants to become a multimillionaire and a rich man in the summer, he's at it. And I think when Dems is at it and Sammy's at it, John has already been at it all season. So them 3 together can beat anyone in this league on their own. And then you amalgamate that with if they have an off day, the back line then can dig us out of a hole. And maybe we haven't always had that. It's always been 5-3, 4-2, and as long as the front 3 keep at it, we have a chance. And that was why the squad was built and put together. With the backbone of that being a lot of younger players coming in and helping. And again, credit to young Canu, he was up against Guion Edwards, is really, really good in that role. And he's filling in for Joe Ward, he's out with a niggle. And he's been brilliant. Idris, he's 20, and he stepped in, no problem. And Ricky's coming off the bench at 18 and he's getting us up the pitch late in games with his pace. So that plan is working. And long may it fucking continue, do you know what I mean? So, look, I still think Hull and Portsmouth are probably, one of them could run away with the league. But I like where we are. I like what we look like. With all the things going on, the COVID, the snow, the shutdown of Christmas, as a club, as a team, as a management, as staff, the way the season ended last year, I think they've come through very strongly mentally. And that puts us in good stead. So, yeah, positive stuff.
It's kind of crazy to think about here we are at the end of January and it's not even halfway through the season from a games played perspective.
Mental.
And we got, 3 months left?
Yeah, we've played 22 games or whatever else. You're absolutely right. It is mental. Look, it's going to be a battle of attrition the last 3-4 months. It'll be whoever's left standing because I don't care who you are in our league. With the amount of games coming up, it's really about who's physically strong, who's fit, who stays injury-free. All those things are going to play a big part. So I wouldn't want to be a bookie in our league because, the best team in the league could suddenly lose 4 key players and they're playing every 2 days. And then there's suddenly, how thin is the squad? How good is the squad? And they're the things that are going to come into play. So it'll be really fascinating to see how it plays out. Would you like to think the Football League might extend it into May a bit or whatever to help out? Because now you got the snow and you got games called off because of the snow. I know we've got a tent over our pitch, but again, I woke up yesterday, it was fucking white everywhere. It was like reliving the disco days in a nightclub back in Marbella in the 80s. The white snow floating around everywhere. Yeah. So hopefully our game will be on tomorrow, but I don't think we could afford another break of a week without games, because where are you tagging those 3 games on? And now we're in the EFL quarterfinals. Away at I mean, we got Shrewsbury away on Saturday and then Tranmere away on Tuesday. That's some serious mileage in the era of COVID. Do you know what I mean? Where you can't, hotels and issues and all the things. It's difficult.
Yeah, we were away at Cambridge on Saturday. We got down at Southend now tomorrow.
Wow.
So that's, a bit of traveling, having not played for 25 games.
You did brilliant. You did brilliant.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was really happy with. We should have won. And maybe there's some Cambridge fans listening who will say otherwise, but I don't think that it looked like that they were top of the table and we were 20th in the table.
The new signings played.
So only one of them played, which was Danny Rowe. And he looked really interesting, looked something a little bit different than what we've got. It was shoot on sight. I think his first shot, he shot from 25 yards out and broke the goalkeeper. So the goalkeeper needed to come off.
That's Danny Rowe.
With a dislocated shoulder or collarbone or something, because the way that he saved it. And he had a couple more of those. So it looks like, there's some goals in him. We probably need somebody a little bit different to play off him or play in front of him.
He's not the most mobile, so you're going to need some pace around him. Do you know what I mean?
He's going to come and he's going to link up and he's going to shoot on sight, which is great.
100%. He took too long coming out of non-league. He could have had a fabulous longer career, and he still will in League Two, maybe League One. So no doubt about it. Do you know what I mean? We'd seen him 3 years ago. He was always a little bit too old for my matrix of scouting. Do you know what I mean? He was like 27, knocking in the goals. But my goodness, he has scored some serious goals the last 3-4 years.
Yeah, he got 155 in 241 for Fylde.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of surprising that he only came out of non-league last year when he went to Oldham, and that's at 29.
What did you pay for him?
Well, it's undisclosed. I think the word on the street is about 40 grand.
COVID discounts.
Yeah. So we're still in the market for more.
Ooh,
so we'll see. Yeah. We needed to do something, as we've talked about on the show. And actually what your point before about how a few games, things, those that are at top, you get some injuries. I mean, that's really what happened to us, was that, we were only mid-table when that run started, but we had games thick and fast, and we had half the team injured, and there was nothing we could do about it. And that bad form and confidence and, just kind of compounded on itself, and it was really hard to dig yourself out of it.
Those things, injuries, illnesses, setbacks. I mean, you only have to look at Liverpool, how it can affect teams. Probably the team that's best managed in the Premier League is Man City. They lost all their strikers, and because Pep can play with a false nine, they've managed to win loads of games with no striker. So whereas Liverpool lose centre halves, and we're playing our best midfielders at the back, and I don't care what you say, regardless if they've stopped scoring or not, it's no coincidence really when you're losing that level of talent at the back to the way you play. So even the best teams in the world struggle when they don't have the strength and depth, or they don't have the first 11 players in their 11. So that no club is immune from that, and that's the unfortunate thing.
Now, you've been voicing your concern about Liverpool for some time, and here we are. Are they going to be fighting to qualify for Europe at this point? Never mind the title. It's been a pretty grim couple of weeks, hasn't it?
I think Klopp's been let down by ownership massively. I said the other day, it'd be the equivalent of us playing a top of the table clash against Hull, and 4 weeks prior losing all our recognised centre halves, and Darren Ferguson having to play 2 central midfielders against Hull. And midway through January, when I could have done something and brought in a defender or 2 defenders to help out, and I do nothing. So sometimes you get what you deserve in football. I think, poor Klopp has been hung out to dry, with the backing. Now, I've always been critical of Jurgen when necessary. I can't be critical of him at the moment. He's made the best. He hasn't moaned about it and moaned about ownership like other people do. And they've grinded results out, and then they've had the odd battering. They've done Crystal Palace and whatever else, but they haven't been themselves for me. And, not giving him that, for Liverpool to go out and spend 30, 40 million on a centre half shouldn't be difficult to do. The surplus and profit and value of the club the last 5-6 years, they're way out.
And people want to come and play for Liverpool.
Yeah, and they're owned by billionaires. I mean, I understand there's a pandemic, but a billionaire loaning Liverpool 50 million to buy a centre half, or maybe an extra one as well, to try and keep them in the top 4 is a good investment, because if they fall outside the top 4, they'll lose 70 million for not being in the Champions League. So you're going to shoot yourself in the foot.
And you're going to spend that money in the summer, more than likely, on somebody anyway.
1,000,000%. And you know what? The other flip to it is You're going to get centre-halves now that might a year ago have cost 60, 70 million. You're going to get them for 30, 40 million now because of the pandemic. So that's built in. The discount's built in because of the pandemic. If you wait another window or 2 windows and the pandemic subsided and everyone's back to kind of semi-normal, you're going to start having to pay those rates again. So it's astonishing, really, that a club that size have found themselves in this position. And I do worry about them finishing top 4. I do. And, they've got issues there. But the idea that he should be criticised, Klopp, not a chance, because he's done a magnificent job and he's trying, and you can tell he's losing his shit inside internally. You know what I mean? Trying not to snap. And I saw Lampard the other day snap a journalist in a Chelsea interview, and sometimes you can tell when it's the end for a manager.
Mm-hmm.
They lose their cool very quickly. Like Lampard was having a go at a journalist about online articles he writes and his lack of, his bias and this, that, whatever. And at that stage, you're thinking, shit, you're losing control here. Sometimes I've done that with my managers where I've reined them in and gone, listen, you're showing weakness because you're losing shit out in the public. You've got to remain composed no matter what's going on. Explode at me by all means, but don't take it out on some poor guy in the press.
Yeah, it feels like when that happens, I know that's happened with us as well. It's like at that point, you're past the point of no return, and it's only a matter of time.
100%. I get it. Journalists wind me up. They wind everyone up. I don't have to speak to them 3 times a week like a manager. But sometimes it's like, don't show the chink in your armor. Sometimes you got to remain cool, calm, and collected. And the message you're sending your players when you're fighting with the media isn't a good message. There's one thing taking the blame for a bad performance. That's good management. But to be badgering and at the press all the time, players don't need, if they're not playing well and you're not in good form, that distraction, those headlines, they're not needed. So, but for me, Chelsea made the right decision. I always said anyway, he was the right manager for those circumstances, but to manage a club that spends 200 million, for me, no, he's not the right manager. You only have to look at his defensive record at Derby, his defensive record in his first year at Chelsea. He's not good enough. No disrespect to him. I'm sure he'll get another job because if he is,
too early in his career, perhaps.
And I know the media are very much in his corner because he's a favourite and whatever else. But let's call a spade a spade. That if that was any other foreign manager coming in, managing Chelsea with that record, the headlines about him would be, dead man walking. So, I always said, from a staff to him, I'm not sure they're good enough. And the point's been proven when you look at what Brendan Rodgers did to them, Leicester, Chelsea last week. Miles away.
It sounds like from reading an article in The Athletic this morning, which was a fantastic article that really went into kind of the last few months, that it's been on the table since the end of last season. It was just a matter of time.
Yeah, when you hear all the sniping coming out of a training ground, and I hate all that crap, the players are talking and, they're saying themselves, he won't be here long. But when you also read between the lines about stuff like he's not talking to players and he's ignored players and he's done this, he's done whatever else. And that's just for any manager to do that, that's bad. My manager always says he likes to be honest with the players because he was a player. So if he's not picked them, he likes to tell them why. Because it's best not to ignore players. And yes, sometimes players piss you off, but, he was managing a big set of egos at Chelsea. It's one of the biggest jobs in the world. But the truth is, he has not got the best out of the recruits they brought in. Now, it's all very well getting the best out of the youth team players last year, and Mason Mount is in every team he picks. It's obvious no matter what, he would play every game. But to be a truly top manager, you have to be able to deal with top egos. The Mourinhos, the Guardiolas, the Klopps, they've done that. They bring in players and they can improve them and turn them into better players. And it looks to me, Lampard, the big signings he's brought in, he's actually done the opposite of improving them.
Yeah.
He hasn't found a system that fits them. He hasn't improved any of them collectively. And he certainly haven't settled in well enough. So that would be a warning sign of eye on Chelsea because we're used to spending 100+ million every summer on big signings. And if the first 6 we've brought in, 3 or 4 of them, he hasn't got a tune out of them, what's going to happen in the next batch?
Right.
So, that would be a big concern. Do you know what I mean? So, to be fair, what's the bets now? Chelsea will finish top 4.
We've talked about it before. The manager bounce is real.
Oh, guaranteed.
You talked about the press. Do players pay attention to what goes on in the press?
Players read forums. They read social media. They read the press. Sometimes I wish they didn't. Particularly young players. They take stuff to heart. And they can be their own worst enemies where they will celebrate a win and they're all over social media. And then they'll go and hide in when there's a defeat. I've always said...
They'll take the adulation when they win.
And I've always said me on social media as an example. Take the trolls when you're losing and take the plaudits when you're winning and be pretty much the same. And I've always been that way. So, we win a game, great. We lose a game, it's like hell, it's coming at you. So, but, it bounces off me. It's easy for me at 44 to say that. I'm not 21 again. But I remember what I was like at 21, and my ego was so big, I wouldn't have bothered me about people knocking me and having a go. But a lot of young players aren't built that way. So it can be a real poison chalice, and you have to be careful how you manage it. And this is where probably more and more shrinks are needed to help in the game. And when I say shrinks again, apologies to the sports psychologists out there, to come in and help. And I think, if we were in the championship, I would probably have one that would come in a couple of days a week and talk to players. We can't afford one now in League One. There's no justification for it financially. So, but in the championship, it's probably a little addition I would make to maybe help, particularly with younger people, because younger people can play well and play shit.
And that's part of being young, and because the consistency is not there.
Correct. You make mistakes, you're learning on the go, you're learning from your mistakes. It's the young ones who don't learn from the mistakes are the ones that you tend to move on from. But at the end of the day, and I read a lot of football books, and I was reading Jamie Redknapp's book just today, and about when he was young and he was at Bournemouth, he went to Liverpool, and the pressure and being on your own, and people don't realise how difficult it is for young players, and there are young players who are too influenced by agents, and that's poisonous, and that's really poisonous. Do you know what I mean? And I've had it, and we've had it, and it's the worst thing a young player and his parents can do is be poisoned by an agent, because all I've ever seen, and I've got no example of that working, all I've seen in my 15 years, when an agent gets involved with a teenager and poisons relationships between the club, the player, that player tends to never go higher. They go on a steep decline. It goes the other way. And then the agent gets rid of them, moves on, and then they're fucked.
Yeah, the agent should know better.
I'm a parent. I would implore all parents and players and whatever else sometimes to not distrust the football club. I'm not saying that. If you want representation, fine. But the best agents for me I've dealt with younger players are the ones who always come to us and go, I want to contract my young player, but I want my agency fee to go to the player. And it's not about money. I just want to put some more petrol in his car. I want him to play. And I want them to progress. They're the best agents in the game for me, and I've had a few of them. And some players we've paid from brought in, I've had some of those agents as well. Look, Darragh, it's not about this move, it's the next one. I want them to play. The emphasis for young players should always be about playing, not making excuses, not causing issues, not causing strife, not wanting to sign contracts and all that crap that goes with it. Sometimes agents want to rush the process out of greed, and all it does is damage. And I mean damage young people's careers. So I implore, if any young footballers are listening to the podcast, I implore you to don't always listen to your agent. Okay? Look in the mirror, be an adult, take your own career in your hands, work hard, because working hard always pays off, and I've always said that, and take your opportunities when they arise. Mm-hmm. And whatever you do, don't fuck up your opportunity. Do you know what I mean? And don't be short-sighted. So that would be always my advice to young players. And for any young player out there, even if they're not at my club, if they wanted to talk to me and soundboard about it, no problem. I do that. I said to you the other day, I'm speaking to a couple of ex-players next week about going into other businesses after football. They want to pick my brains. Same with young players. If you want a soundboard off me, I'm happy to chat, talk you through it. I've got no skin in the game. Unfortunately, most agents, a lot of them are poison, and they're not working for the betterment of their client. The worst part for them is when they come up against someone like me. I've been around for so long, I see through their bullshit. I see the games they try and use, the words they try and use, the emails they try and use. And the worst part for them is I fucking bury them anytime I want, because I know what they're up to. Do you know what I mean? And at the end of the day, pissing someone like me off is the worst part you can do when you're trying to build a business. Do you know what I mean? Because I would always tell the truth. I always say the truth shall set you free. And at the end of the day, the only truth I can tell about agents who have the wrong advice for young players is you'll get found out and you won't be in the game very long. There's 72 clubs in a football league, and we all speak to each other. And, you'll sit with a director and I go, have you ever dealt with such and such agent? I go, yeah, fucking hell. And vice versa, they do the same with me. And then you come in a position where you can't do business. So I don't know what goes through those agents' minds. And I don't know what goes through young players' minds who just listen to agents nonstop like that. It just makes no sense.
So if a young player is coming to you and saying, look, I don't have representation, I'm looking for representation, what should I look for in an agent? Like, what kind of agents would you, or what should a young player look for in an agent that is actually going to be the kind of representative that's going to advocate for you?
So you got your few different agents. You got your big time agents who deal with a lot of Premier League stars and young players. And the dream always is come to our stable because we have contacts with the big clubs and da 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 da. You've got other agents who've been around these players and sniffed around them like it's their last chance of gold and making money and don't have a lot of clients. And all they want to do basically is move that player on to try and make money and cause strife. And then you've got other agents. So I've got an agent of a player at our club that we brought in. And he's been with his agent since he was 17. And when this player, and the player is now like 24, 25.
Yeah.
And when this player was 17, 18, he made a lot of bad choices. And he got in a lot of trouble. And he got released from a lot of clubs. But the one constant theme throughout it all, who's still with him today, is that agent. The agent's been with him since day one. And that agent gets his Sky TV looked after, his internet, when he moves house. When he went for a medical, he went with him. It was 7 hours in London. That agent treats him like family. That agent sat with me, and before they even got into their fee, talked about the player and is he going to play? And, it wasn't greed. It was about what happens next. And then if we get promoted, he'll obviously make serious money and da-da-da-da-da. And it was a genuine love for the player. That was the right kind of agent. It was genuine love. Too many families get family friends sometimes to represent players. And that can also be a good thing, but sometimes it can also be a bad thing as well. Other agents out there, they just see that player as, it's money. And when they're young, it's not money. For a time an agent makes money on a player is probably when they've played 100, 150 games. They finally got to the championship and upwards. That's when you're going to get paid. So I just think if I was speaking to a young player, I would say, look, you need to meet the 3-4 different types of agents. You need to have questions to ask them. I can give you the questions to ask them. And you make a decision at the end. But the one thing you cannot let that agent do is influence and mess your career up. Can't let them do it. And I've seen it happen too often.
So how much influence does an agent have in, I won't say in impacting your career, but in a positive sense? Like, as you as a footballer, like you're going to go and sign somebody, you're not going to, that player is in the shop window because you've become aware of them because of what they have done, not because of their agent coming and saying, hey, did you look at this player? How much of a role do agents truly play in somebody maximizing the potential?
A good agent will always do best by their player, of course, but they'll also have one eye ahead. In other words, look, I'm not going to get the best deal for you now, but we're going to make sure that you're going to play. We're going to make sure you're secure. You do earn a fair income, and then obviously do well, and the next one's going to be better. A good agent's always there for their client when the shit hits the fan, if they have a problem. Or if they're out of a team, kind of keep them prepped up. Don't be filling their head with crap to be moaning to the manager. Do you know what I mean? Like, keep them in a place where be honest with them, be transparent with them. And a good agent will always tell their client the truth. And if their client's playing up or being a prick or being whatever, or being unruly or not behaving, or there are issues, the agent needs to pull the player and tell them. Like I would, and say, look, come on, grow up, stop with the nonsense. That's not how to act. You get reputations in the game of football, they stick with you forever. And I've had some of those players. And those players end up killing their own careers because of those reputations. So a good agent would work with the player on that. Another good agent would bring in a sports psychologist if needed for a player. I've heard of that happen before. And I'm tarring all agents with the same brush, which is a shame, and I don't mean to, because there are some good ones out there. And I've worked with some really, really good ones. And of course, they want to make money, but they also understand that to make good money, it's not about the quick buck now. Yeah. Sometimes it's about planting seeds. And, you have to let things flourish. And that's really important with young players in particular. So what you don't want to do as an agent is fall out with the club. You don't want to give the club unreasonable demands. You don't want to feel like, or put across like you're not working well with the club. They're all the things that don't go in favor of agents who try and pull that crap. And there's too many of them like that out there. A good agent would also recognize there's a pandemic. And there's over 2,000 footballers going to be unemployed next summer. And whilst it might seem right now your player's a hot ticket, things change after 3 or 4 months in football. And then all of a sudden, where's your player end up? So it's one of them things. You know what I mean? It frustrates me sometimes, the actions of some agents. I can't believe it.
Well, I have some other questions about things. It's been a busy week this week. One of the things I wanted to ask you about, which is actually something that happened, I was announced today, we're recording on Monday, was that the San Francisco 49ers increased their ownership stake in Leeds, I think from 15% to 37%. And that follows on from a couple of investments we've talked about the last few weeks of money coming in from the States. We talked about Burnley. What are the 49ers doing? Are they looking at the John Henry approach to Liverpool and building a sporting empire around the world?
Probably. I mean, you've got obviously John Henry, and you've obviously got Stan Arsenal. He's got the Rams in LA. You've obviously got the Glazers who've now got Tampa to the Super Bowl, and they own Man United. So a lot of American-based owners, sports owners, see the multi-franchise thing of having different sports. I'm not shocked. I think they did a deal with Leeds in the Championship. They probably had built into the deal an option to make more equity based on the deal they did. The guy who runs Leeds, a very prudent guy, and he's done really well for Leeds. And now he's got himself some financial help whilst retaining 60% of the club.
Right. It's like win-win.
Yeah, win-win, prudent. And Leeds is on the up. So, they're going to stay in the Premier League this year. They're spending money on a new pitch. Now they've got, obviously, the 49ers on board. I think they're talking about something to do with the stadium. The 49ers designed Levi's Stadium, obviously, in San Francisco, is it?
It's a beautiful stadium.
It is a beautiful stadium. And so they'll bring some of that. Obviously, if Leeds are looking to develop Ellen Road and everything else. And I always was that guy who never had partners. But since having partners, it's taught me that sometimes, 2 brains or 3 brains are better than one. Never mind 3 sets of wallets. So, Leeds have got now a big wallet. And the owner of San Francisco, that family who own them, and Jed York, his name is, the guy who owns San Francisco, the York family, they're worth a lot of money. So the days of Leeds being in administration and the Ken Bates era, that's long in the rear view.
Scrimping and saving for a £100,000 transfer fee.
Yeah, you know what? What's great is it's historically a big club, and it's great to see them. I said this before, didn't I? Peaks and troughs. It's great to see them at a peak. And obviously you feel bad about me saying that because you think of Bradford, but it just shows you what's possible out there.
Yeah, it's one of those things that distance has allowed me to be more favourable towards, or should I say not hate them as much as I used to be. Back when you're living down the road and you're getting beaten every week and Leeds are winning and you're getting abuse from everybody, then I think that, you wish ill on them a little bit more. But when you're the other side of the world, you can kind of sit back and think, wow, would I prefer it be another club? Maybe, but, good luck to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's one of the biggest clubs in England. And it developed Ellen Road. I mean, they probably got 60,000 people in there, if obviously pandemics passed and whatever else. So it's definitely a club on the up. And Andrea,
I mean, they didn't lose their fans when they got relegated and when they were going through the hard times.
Are you kidding me? The paydays we get from having Leeds fans. So at the end of the day, you can imagine that club's probably going to be worth, in the next 5-6 years, £1 billion. They start finishing top 6 consistently. Good academy. You think Liverpool was 200 million, the Fenway Group bought it for, and it's now valued at 2.5 billion. Those valuations, once the pandemic's in the rearview mirror, will go through the roof. So 49ers, very prudent business.
So let's talk about Newcastle.
Oh.
I mean, it seems like they're sleepwalking towards relegation at this point. Jamie Carragher said that they're in the danger, and I'm not sure, I think it struck a nerve, but in danger of becoming a nothing club. They have a takeover that's on, off, who really knows. Kind of a tricky situation there at the moment.
No matter what happens there, the fans never take to Ashley. It's just been, again, I use the word poison, since day one, they haven't taken to him. So even if they were top 10, there would be still murmurs, there would be still issues. It really is a tough job to take. I feel for Steve Bruce. I like Steve a lot. The media pile on, all the Benitez disciples pile in.
Yeah, now Rafa's in the market. As the heat is going to come out even higher on him.
Well, not really, because Ashley wouldn't have him back. He wrote like an article slagging him off in the Athletics. So if I were Ashley, I'd, walk over hot, fire and cold, take him back. But it's a bad situation. But I know this: the squad he's got's good enough to stay up. There are definitely 3 worst teams in the Premier League. One of them's pretty much already down at Sheffield United. So, Do I think they'll go down? No, I don't. I think what they'll do is they'll pull 2 or 3 wins together. I think they'll keep Bruce. They're talking about Eddie Howe possibly going in. But knowing Eddie Howe, I'm not sure he'd want to go into a job that's on the slide like that. Eddie Howe would be, for me, the type of guy that would start in the summer, rather than go into a pressure cooker situation where a club hasn't won for 10 games. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, but it hasn't been good for Newcastle fans recently, which is a real shame.
The other thing that was of interest was Mick McCarthy coming back to the UK. So what a weird couple of months that he's had. He went out to Cyprus, came back to the UK, came to Cardiff. And what was actually interesting that I wanted to ask about this was, we talked last week about Cardiff signing Max Waters, and obviously this happens all the time. You end up signing players and then a day later or a week later or whatever it may be, the manager gets sacked. As a player, how do you look at that and think, I was brought in here under one regime and immediately the regime has changed?
I think most players realise now as football changes, and our club is one of the first to do it with our recruitment, that the club recruits players, not the manager. Cardiff recruited Perry NG and Max Waters, two of the best talents in the lower league. That's good business for Cardiff. It doesn't matter if they've got fucking nobody in charge or someone in charge.
Yeah.
The players are the club. And, I don't think Mick McCarthy would have a problem with those two signings. They'd be his kind of players. Definitely don't think the players who are probably getting 7, 8, 9 grand a week give a shit about who the manager is if he's changed when they come in.
As long as the money keeps coming in.
Yeah, exactly. So, very few players when you're signing or doing business ever ask, is the manager's job safe? They kind of know football. And I've always said the typical job in football management is like 10 and a half months. So I think players signing 4-year deals now, they'll probably go through a couple of managers. That's just the business. That's the game. That's the industry. Good luck to Mick. I like Mick. I know Mick really well. It's a tough one. He's going in there till the end of the season. But, fair play. He keeps working. He keeps getting paid and he deserves it.
Do we as supporters look too much into signing players and then sacking the manager? And the reason, like the context for that is, for us at Bradford, the last transfer, last January, we went to the window. We got rid of, big earners, Vaughan, Doyle. We brought in a couple of others on transfer deadline day. And then 2 days later, you sacked the manager. And it seems like, you're allowed a manager to reshape the squad or make big, structural changes to the squad. And 2 days later, he's gone and his replacement can't do anything about it. From the outside, it looks, you kind of question the reasoning behind why would you make that move now rather than the beginning of a transfer window.
I think if you have a manager who's very transfer heavy and signs a specific set of players, and we've had one before, a specific set of Scottish players came in and whatever else. And when you get that kind of manager, and there's the danger that when you do let them go, those players, like most of those players, we've moved on. So that is the issue financially for any club. But if you're a club who, say, like we recruit, whether the gaffer's here today or tomorrow or he gets a job higher up, our player recruitment strategy won't really change. So it won't make much of a difference. And like he's come and gone in the past, and he always joked that when he came back, most of the players he knew were still here, or whatever else. It's a Peterborough type player. So sometimes is it a Peterborough type player or a Darragh Ferguson type player?
Yeah,
kind of married him up. Now, if you've got a very specific type of manager who loves the agricultural approach to football and very direct, very physical, and you're bringing in a certain set of players, and then you go out and get a stylist to come in who wants to play tiki-taka and whatever else, he's going to go, no, those 10 have to go, and I need another 10. And financially now, clubs can't do that anymore. So that could be a disaster.
Do you think there's going to be less, because we found, I know that you're a little bit different because you're giving out 2, 3, 4-year contracts, but most teams are still only giving out 12-month, 24-month contracts if you're lucky, and then that just leads to turnover every summer. Now, do you think that's going to continue? That contracts are going to continue to get shorter?
Yeah, I think with the pandemic going on, and with obviously the fucking lunatic here in the UK who loves a lockdown, people, if they're still locked up for the next fucking 18 months in this stupid place, the way they're going with it, I think the issue you got then is football will change. If we don't have fans soon, this season's been a real stretch. It's been hard for everyone. If we're going into next season and these clowns still won't let us have fans back, even after mass vaccination, we're done. I think lots of clubs are done. Not my club being done. Lots of clubs are officially done. We got the help this season. It wasn't enough. It was much appreciated. Now the pressure needs to be put on the government now. Now you have to start writing checks. The damage you're doing now, never mind to our industry, but to every industry. So I think less, more and more deals have been done with COVID stipulations in contracts now. Probably where if there's a shutdown, we can get out of the contract.
Interesting.
You're going to see that happen a lot more. You're going to see less money being spent at the moment in League One, League Two. And you're definitely going to see short-term deals. Like you saw, who's the player who signed? He played Charlie Daniels from Bournemouth, went to Shrewsbury. He only signed a deal till January, and he's just gone out to Portsmouth. So you're probably going to see a lot more short-term, they're called multiplicity contracts where it's month to month. You'll see a lot more of them. Wages will become less in football. I said to you just before, there's going to be 2,000 people competing for jobs in the summer. So it's a realization for agents, players, like wakey. If you have a club that offers you a 3-year deal, snap their fucking hands off and stop fighting with them. Because with everything going on in the world, it's a godsend to be offered a 3-year contract.
Yeah, and clubs are going to get smarter about the salary cap as well, and there's no special dispensation here, there, and everywhere.
Look, football's going to be like this for the next couple of years, regardless of lockdown Larry in charge here in the UK. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's just going to be like this economically for a while, while we pay for the effects of what's happened during the pandemic. So yeah, that's going to trickle down to the players.
All right, well, let's leave it there for now, and we'll come back in a couple of moments. We've got lots and lots of questions, so we'll see if we get through all the questions. We'll be back with some of them in a second. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Hard Truth podcast, and I'm joined again by Darragh. Now, we continue to work on the business subscription podcast. We've talked about it for a couple of weeks, but why don't you share what we've been doing the last few days here?
So I'm back in the States next week. Myself and Phil will be filming the first one the following week. That will go out free to the listeners on this pod at the moment. But eventually we're closing it off to subscribers only after the first episode. We want to kind of cap it off at 1,000 people. We've had hundreds of sign-ups already. If you want to sign up, go to hardtruthbusiness.com, click in your details. You'll be sent a lot more information, and Phil's going to go into that in next week's episode about what is going to be content-wise, how you get on the pod and listen to it. This podcast is going to be strictly about business. It won't be sports. So if you're looking to get a new job, if you're looking to improve your current job, if you're looking to start a business, if you're looking to sell a business, if you're looking to recover from financial devastation, if you're looking for investment advice, if you're looking for someone to invest in a business, if you're looking to basically change your life and your mental outlook on life, all those things. I've got 25 years of experience. Phil's got years of experience in the procurement industry and other industries. My industry and background is marketing, sales, real estate, sports, multi-invested in about 10 other companies. Obviously, became a multi-millionaire at 25. Was on the Sun Rich list at 28, 29, 2 years in a row. Great brag. And obviously, I've bought a sports franchise before the age of 30. So I'm not trying to say I can teach you how to be successful or to make loads of money. There will be disclaimers to that. But my advice can be invaluable in many ways and hopefully help people out there. And yes, this business pod could cost about 15 quid a month. But for that, you're going to get episodes every week. You're going to get Zoom access to us, and you're going to get to pitch also businesses. So there's going to be a lot in it. If you're really interested, pass it on to other people as well. Talk amongst yourselves. Go to hardtruthbusiness.com and register your interest to subscribe.
Looking forward to seeing, well, one, we've been putting it together. We've been building the infrastructure the last week or so. Really excited about it coming together and getting it out there.
Absolutely.
Sign up. We'll send you notifications then as soon as it's available for you to sign up. Well, let's go in. We've had a ton of questions and we don't have a ton of time. So what we may do is we'll see how far we get, and we can always continue with some of these questions next week. But I'm going to start with Craig Bond. Craig is a Charlton fan, and he just makes a note, first of all, that the playing surface at some of the grounds really determines how they have to play and the style of play. Craig asks, can a poor playing surface cause friction between an owner, a chairman, and a manager if a manager can't play their preferred style at home?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've always tried that. I've spent millions on the pitch in 15 years. Our managers always demanded, to have a great playing surface.
Mm-hmm.
And the gutter about our current pitches, we spent 800 grand, £1 million on two pitches, one for the stadium and one for our training ground. And fair play to the company that we did the business with. We did a lease deal with it. And the pitch has been brilliant up to this season. And then before Christmas, we had an absolute disaster where pipes burst right under the whole ground. The pipes frozen under the ground. Water's not getting through. And the pitch was retaining water all over. If it wasn't for that surface we put in, it could have lost it for the season. Right now, it's scrappy. I know the Charlton fans are moaning like fuck about it. Imagine how we feel. We've spent all this money and we've had a pandemic and then this disaster with the pipes. So we've got a tent on it right now. We need sun. It'll be back to its brilliant self again, April, May. It's not lost forever. And it's really tough for our players as well as Charlton and other teams' players to come in. So I believe in giving the manager as many tools as he can get without him being greedy. Of course, he'll ask for stuff I say no to. But myself, my partner's been brilliant in this because they've given him the stuff at the training ground that he's wanted. They've approved. I've approved. And anything to help the football team and the football side of the business do better, we're all in. Because if you're trying to play and implement a certain style of football and you give your manager horrible pitches to play that on, it's not workable, it's not doable. So yes, more and more football clubs now are spending more money on pitches. And credit to our pitch staff and the pitch company that we use. They've worked their bollocks off the last few weeks to get games on. We've now been hit with snow over the weekend. It's just one hit after another at the moment. And I know it sounds like I need a violin played here, but like football clubs aren't catching the break at all.
No, and as you talked about from a money perspective, it's not cheap, is it? I mean, it's a good pitch and all the drainage.
We spend hundreds of thousands of pounds every year. Our training ground, our electricity bill between the stadium and the training ground is nearly $250,000 a year. I mean, you've no idea the money, the rates, the pitch maintenance, the staff that goes into it. Even if you're using companies, it is expensive, even as a League One club. Now you can go the other way and just ignore it and treat it like a park pitch. Just get the lawnmower out or whatever and sprinkle a bit of water on it. But we've over the years have spent on water systems at the training ground and at the main ground. I mean, the things we've spent on the pitch. So the payback for that is good style of football and hopefully promotion success. And at the moment, we're fighting the odds because of the state of our pitch. And don't forget as well, the energy it saps out of our players' legs playing on it. So Charlton fans were kind of digging me out about our pitch, but know the facts before you do. We have one of the best playing surfaces in League One normally. And, this was a one-off because of the pipe situation and the weather over Christmas and the rain.
So I have a question from Dwayne, and Dwayne is a listener, who's based a couple of hours outside of Melbourne in Australia, and he's actually a former recruiting officer, which I think really means scout, for a couple of the big Aussie rules teams. And Dwayne just asked if you have ever looked at Australian players in the A-League, and just makes a note about there's a lot of talented juniors right now who just don't get a fair go in Australia because there's the importation of a lot of players from the Championship or the Bundesliga or from Holland that are really pushing out juniors down in Australia.
I've watched a few games. I've seen some of the talent. Some players have obviously come over via Man City because I think Adelaide or whichever club they own is part of their group. And I think there'll be more and more of them coming over. So the answer to the question is yes, there's some talent there. A lot of the time, work permits and issues like that could be a problem, as it is with America. I've got some really good contacts in the USL and the MLS, and they're always like this player, that player. And the under-20s for the USA have got a great young team at the moment with players going to Germany and whatever. But the work permit can be an issue with a lot of them. And you can't get them in and out. The rules are changing all the time, and now with Brexit, which doesn't affect America. But as an example, I'm just saying the bureaucracy sometimes can stop that. That's not a bad thing at the moment because you'd like to look after people at home. And there's a lot of English footballers unemployed. So maybe to stem that flow at the moment for foreign players for a year or two because of the pandemic might be the right thing to do. And, I'm okay with that. But if we were in the Championship and doing well, our scouting would be a bit more international than it is right now.
Got a question from Michael, who is a Birmingham City fan. There's a couple of questions, and I'll give the context of the question in a moment. The question is it important to have people in the club that have an affinity for the club? That kind of understand
Yes.
the culture, the context, and kind of what's going on. And I think that the context of this question is that from a Birmingham City perspective, Michael feels that a lot of the staff that had that have been forced out. And so you've got people in the club that don't have that background, and it's impacting decisions negatively.
I bought Posh and I kept on the CEO. I kept on Barry Fry. I kept on key parts of the youth teams. The things I did at the time, I understood that they're in the community. They know the community. They know the history. They know the club, what it means. I'm an outsider coming in. It's going to take me time to earn that respect from fans, to get my stripes, to, now you can say I'm fully ingrained as a Peterborough United. But it took me a while to get there. And I think it's really important for a club to keep some of its identity that has those people around the edges. And if you go to our club today, from Bob, who looks after the away directors when they come to our boardroom, right down to Mark Tyler is our goalkeeping coach, who's a club legend, to, lots of ex-players being maybe on the coaching staff, to Matthew Edrington and Simon Davis, who Barry sold when they were 16 and 17 for millions. They run our under-18s.
Talk about Championship manager. Those were two of the biggest Championship manager signings back in the day. And they're now back with you.
They won the under-18 league title last year, and guess who's top of the under-18 league again this year after the first was already poached players from their squad. So, these are people that have an affinity with the club. They go back a long way. And the Birmingham fans absolutely right. Baz, was heartbroken as well, himself, where he said to me there were people he knew at Birmingham, they're gone, and he used to love seeing them when we played them in the Championship, and he had a cup of tea because he was manager there and he was a legend. So, I don't know. Look, foreign ownership can be tricky. I'm not going to teach other foreign owners that suck eggs. But I think the biggest mistake they can make is bombing out people. Now, look, if you've got people there who are causing problems, or people there maybe you see as a cancer, okay, fair. You make your call, you make your decisions. That's what happens when you buy a business. But at the same time, you want the business to retain some historical identity. So you have to be a little bit clever about how you go about things. To completely get rid of everything and start fresh, not a good idea. If I bought a club tomorrow, trust me, it would still have some key components there that marry up with the history of the club.
Mm-hmm. And that's what happened with us when our ownership bought Bradford. There was a lot of the folks who were involved behind the scenes because we had somebody who was, kind of wanted to put his mark on every aspect of the club. got rid of a lot of those people and came in. And, you know, when you get to the playoff final and you're almost getting to the championship, nobody really worries about it too much. When you're struggling next season and you're looking at relegation, then all of a sudden it's a big problem. So results on the field definitely play. It's like you look at that as another reason why you think, oh, we've lost our soul now. If you're winning, I don't think you're as concerned about it, but when you're losing, it's definitely becomes a big issue for fans.
You go to some of the biggest clubs. An example would be Liverpool. And you see the matches, you see Kenny Dalglish there as an ambassador. You see Ian Rush. You see some of the legends from even before them still there.
Mm-hmm.
People are still a big part of the club. Do you know what I mean? So as a foreign ownership, you have to be very careful about what you do. And I dare say it's the same in other clubs. They still have a little bit of history still there. So it's a good question. Hopefully it's answered.
Yep. I got a question from Dan Coles, who's a posh fan living in Stockport. Dan asks, what's your feeling on what the League One and League Two clubs, in terms of output, I think in terms of appearances on TV, that you're getting from the current TV deal? And his context for that is that it feels like that Sky's not necessarily showing a lot of League One and League Two football, perhaps outside of international breaks. And should we as League One and League Two clubs be getting a little bit more exposure on Sky?
It's tough, and I don't want to be critical of Sky because the money has been a godsend through a pandemic. So of course you'd want to be on TV more. I think we've been on TV once in the last 20 months. So, you know, and you'd like to see us on a lot more. The game we were on was Lincoln away. With no fans, that extra bit of TV money would be great, you know, if we were all on. But everyone has the iFollow now, it's different. So in answer to your question, I'd love more emphasis on League One and League Two. It's the same with a TV show like Quest. You know, they probably do mass majority championship and then go through League One, League Two. Although they're a lot better than the previous BBC show. But you always, as League One fans and League Two fans or whatever else, you want more emphasis on those leagues as well. So, you know, I still think that the landscape will change in 10 years' time. And I always said this to the EFL about doing a study where the EFL did their own Netflix type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Took everything in-house like the NFL does and like other people do, where fans pay 20 quid a month and get access to every game in the Football League. And we had our own presenters working for the EFL. We had our own studios. We had everything going. It was all EFL, you know, run. You know, I still think there'll be a lot more money in the game for us than the way it is at the moment, where it's carved up. And, you know, maybe one day they'll put the money into doing an experiment to check how much it will cost to do and the benefit and whether it outweighs, you know what I mean, the current deal or is better than the current deal. But I still think that's the future.
Yeah, you know, when I think about me watching football, if Bradford aren't playing, I'd love to go and have a chance to watch another League One or League Two game.
Right.
You know, and obviously without a separate, you know, iFollow account, you can't go and do that.
Yeah. So if I said to you, look, Phil, it's £25 a month. You get every game in the 72. You get to watch 24 hours a day, a news channel, presenters, shows, highlight shows, everything, and that's all you pay. You'd sign up.
It's a no-brainer.
There's millions of fans out there who probably do the same monthly. So would that a monthly amount outweigh the current Sky deal and foreign deal that we have?
Yeah. And you see, you pay more a month doing that than paying for your own season ticket.
Of course, absolutely. So, you know, people who are football nuts will have done it. And I did argue last time before the last TV deal that, you know, have we investigate the financial, how much would it cost to do? How long would it take to hit a base where we're not losing, getting less than we're getting now? And then we grow it. We grow it in Asia. We grow it, you know, around the world. We grow it domestically. Do you know what I mean? And we become like our own Netflix, the EFL. And maybe you could take non-league in there with it and broaden the horizon. So, you know, that was, you know, it's basically an app you download on your Apple TV or on your TV, like an Amazon app or Netflix app, and everyone gets to watch it.
Yeah.
And it's worldwide. And because a lot of people will have the package here and they go abroad and they can't use it, but you can. You know, if you did this, you could watch it anywhere. So that has to be the future for our game, in my opinion. Instead of you know, diminishing returns on TV deals, which become less when we do a deal.
Well, Dan, being a posh fan in Stockport, inspired me to ask a question about Jim Gannon, given his kind of shared background with both clubs. And he got sacked this week for what was termed as cultural reasons.
Unbelievable.
And it just seemed really, I mean, I don't think we know what's gone on behind the scenes, but it seemed like a strange reason to put out in a press release where you would sack your manager.
If I were Jim, I'd have been spitting bullets. And I'd have been probably calling my lawyers. Like somebody describing me leaving for cultural reasons implies what, Phil?
Yeah, shenanigans or that.
Hang on. In the era we're living in now, with cancel culture, and where people are accused of this, and this very quickly, and called all sorts of names, to suddenly use cultural reasons to be sacked, dismissed, doesn't sit well with me. And I wish, Jim and his wife all the best. They're lovely people. He's done an amazing job there. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, whether or not there was a clash between ownership. So, okay, if that's what it is, come out and say, like I did when Steve Evans left. Look, it wasn't working between us. I don't think I used the word cultural reasons, so nor would I. And Jim deserves another job, and he deserves a job in the Football League. The one thing Jim Gannon is a master of, an absolute master of, is young players. You give Jim Gannon a 15-year-old to play it right back in a big game, he'll play them. So any club in League Two who needs a manager with experience, with know-how, tactical nous, improving young players to build into assets, Jim Gannon's your man. Now, I'm sure he'd say himself over the years he can be prickly at times, and he's probably been his own worst enemy in some situations because he'd be honest enough to say that. But he's probably matured as he's got older, and he's learned from those errors when he did a Football League jobs. And I still think there's a hell of a manager in there.
Yeah, like you say, he's done a great job at Stockport to get them where they are on the verge back of the Football League again.
Phenomenal. Honest to God, phenomenal. I couldn't believe that. It was just why I couldn't believe what I was reading when I read the statement. Lunacy.
So I got a couple of last questions from Martin Lee. Martin asks, does a club's location act as a pull factor when trying to sign new players? For example, do you find it easier to sign players at Peterborough's level, with the links into London, as an example, versus if you weren't perhaps so, as centrally located?
It's gone against us a few times. You had a player who was a right back who we were trying to sign. What was his name a couple of years ago in League One? He was out of contract. I think he went to Blackpool in the end.
To Blackpool.
Was it one of your players? You know what? This is my age where I can't remember either. 2 years ago. And he was a free transfer in the summer. And we went in for him. And he chose a club over us, which wouldn't have done as well as us in the league. And I think that got relegated because of geography. And we brought him and his family down and put his wife and him in a hotel. His wife was having none of it. So, and that was geography. He wanted a different region of the UK. I spoke about a previous player before, being in Manchester, who didn't want to come our way. He was young. His family were in Manchester. We lost out in the signing. So geography can play it both ways. So yes, you can get people who are like, oh, it's near London and whatever else. Okay, that's a good fit. But it goes both ways. You bring in players from the northeast. Sometimes they don't settle as well. You bring players from Ireland, they don't settle. So yeah, geography can fuck with a transfer deal.
Do you find that, this is kind of a follow-up question that Martin had, that you, this is based on, so he says he's a Celtic fan, and he's heard that Ross County is an example, which is based north of Inverness, have to pay a lot more just because they need to get people there. Have you seen that you've had to pay people more because of geography, or has that never been an issue for you?
Oh, no, it's never been really, look, if we lived in central London, you'd probably have to pay more. I'd imagine Leighton Orient, they've always had to pay a bit more because if players are around that area, it's not
cost of living.
Yeah, and Peterborough's okay on the cost of living front, so it's not a problem, So I would imagine the big super London clubs, again, it's London, it is what it is. It's like going to France, it's 60% income tax, so you're going to have to get paid a lot more money to get the dough you want. So everything's different, isn't it? But geography would always play a part, I would imagine, in those transfers. But we've lost some terrific deals over the years because of geography.
And the last question that Martin had, and it may be one that you've answered before, but he's asking what the primary motivation for you was in buying Peterborough, and offered a couple of suggestions. Was it investment, a bit of fun, vanity project, a little bit of everything? What was really you wanting to get into football?
Investment never came into it. I was stupid rich at the time, young, dumb. And, I'd never bought it to make money. I bought it to get it to the Premier League thinking I could do that. So it was vanity. It was fun. It was a period in my life where I was a workaholic, where all I did was work. And I needed an outlet, and football was an outlet.
Mm-hmm.
And it coincided with me then getting together with my wife and getting married and having kids. But prior to that, I was just like a workaholic 7 days a week, 50 weeks a year. And it was the right thing for me. And I don't regret it one bit. No matter the money spent or whatever else, it's being involved in something you love, outside of, look, I was very good at selling real estate. Nobody was better than me. But when it comes to sports, it's a passion.
Yeah.
And when you can apply a passion to something, it's great to go to work every day in that. So that's why I've always loved being in football. And I've always said, if I wasn't a posh, I would still be in football.
Now, when you bought Posh, what was the mindset that you had that, I deserve to be here? Because, that's very much your kind of mentality, I think is very positive. Or was it, crap, I can't believe I now own a football club and it's kind of a dream?
I was go big or go home guy. And I was like, I'm coming to change everything, lower down. It wasn't about, look at all these people around me, and I've met like that famous player, and I've met Harry McNabb or Ian Wright or Barry Fry or whatever. No, I wasn't looking at it like, you know, I didn't deserve to be there. I was coming in as the boss, and then I was coming in with a plan. And as I said earlier, and we'll talk about our business podcast, hardtruthbusiness.com. Basically, I am a go big or go home guy. So I was never coming in to be in awe of everything around me. Came in with a plan. I came in with a mindset. I came in applying lots of the things I did in real estate to what I could do in football and sport. And I came in to make a difference. And I came in to add and introduce philosophies that hadn't been in football. And I feel I've done that to a certain extent. So that's why I came into football. So,
all right. Well, I think we're about at time. It's been a great conversation this week. We will be back next Wednesday, February the 3rd. I'll leave with a couple of things that I always leave with. One is, of course, rate and review the podcast on iTunes so other people can find out about it. And of course, tell anybody who, if you like listening, just help us spread the word as far and wide as possible. If you do have questions, you see we got a lot of questions in this week. Keep them coming, because they just add so much, and it makes my job easier. I'll say that as well. But no, we love answering your questions. So you can send those into contact@hardtruthfootball.com. And of course, register your interest in the business pod at hardtruthbusiness.com. So until next week, thank you, Darragh. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
cheers, pal.
See you again next week.